Good afternoon to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com here with your Hurricane Outlook and discussion. It is Monday, November 4th, 2019. Still working on my computers. Having these crazy things happen with my Windows 10. Sometimes these recordings will work. Sometimes they don't. It's so frustrating, but here I am. Not even using the really nice microphone, because when I do that, they only work for about 10 seconds. It's just, Anyway, good to be with you. Thanks for tuning in. Gonna have some interesting things, a couple of announcements to talk about today that I think you're really gonna like. First, a quick look at what's going on, or lack thereof, in the tropics. We're in November now, and so the tropics are not going to be very active, as you would suspect. A little bit of energy over here in the southeastern Pacific, a little bit over here, just to the east-southeast of the Windward Islands. But everything else, as you'll notice, is all westerly. Look at all these westerly winds just screaming across westerly, 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 westerly. And that is a very telltale sign that we are getting towards the end of the season, shearing high-level winds everywhere, not going to allow anything to coalesce and bundle its energy down in the deep tropics. So we tend to not focus on these areas much as we used to. And at least my focus will be more on lower 48 weather going forward as we start to look for big winter storms and things like that. And I'll talk about that as we go forward here. With it being November and almost the end of hurricane season, I will address what I'm going to be doing over the next several months. It's not like at the end of the season I turn off a switch and we all go to sleep until May. No, no, no. It doesn't work that way. And we got a lot of exciting things coming up, and I'll talk about that. So this is what it looks like now. This is where we have been. This is the preliminary look at the season's activity from the National Hurricane Center. And you notice that most of the intense activity for this year, and let me get a different color, go with blue. With the exception of Lorenzo, which did become a major hurricane over here, at about 15 degrees or so latitude. The rest of the activity that became strong, including our Cat 5 this year with Dorian, did so north of 25 latitude. And that's where Michael became a Cat 5 last year, was close to 29, 30 latitude. So these high latitude intense hurricanes seem to be sort of a thing lately. Umberto, major hurricane up here in the subtropics. Dorian became a major hurricane again off the Carolina coast. That's not too unusual. But just looking back at the season as a whole, we got down to the R storm, but most of these storms were short-lived and not very intense. So kind of a scattershot season with some of these subtropical short-lived systems up here. We had Barry that came down this way. A few short systems here, Imelda, but boy, Imelda, $1 billion plus damage from the flooding. And the landfall by just a couple miles to make it a landfall there in extreme eastern North Carolina of Dorian. That's the only hurricane landfall. I'm talking about like getting grazed by a bullet. It just nicks the skin, so to speak. It still hits you, but it wasn't a full-on, shot to the head, so to speak, like what they got down here in the Bahamas. And, I got to say something about that. I saw some news article, almost clickbait level, that said something about Bahamas still recovering from Category 5 Dorian. I'm like, what do you mean still recovering? That thing was, if they had Category 7s, that would be a Category 7, or it seems to be. Right? Still recovering. Come on. That place, those poor folks down there, unbelievable damage. And to say that they're still recovering, I thought that was a weird headline. I wouldn't have written that. I would have said something like, progress moving forward as people still recover from Dorian or something. I don't know. But just the still recovering as the main part of the headline. Of course they are. Anyhow, this is what the season has looked like to date. We might add another named storm here or there, but in terms of any significant impacts, going back to the satellite animation here, those days are over. So Anita, you down here in the Miami area, and Kim and your family up here in Mexico Beach and others that I know that these two ladies have really worried about the season for various reasons, so I'm singling them out. And I'm telling you, you can pretty much breathe a sigh of relief. When you see the wind blowing across the Gulf and the tropics from the west like that, that is it. It's pretty much over. These Arctic fronts that come down, you can still get some development in the Southwest Caribbean or over here in the subtropics, subtropical southwest part of the Atlantic. Yeah, but they're not going to be of much consequence, almost certainly. So I will be shifting away from tropical weather all the time because there's not going to be anything to talk about really, and more towards lower 48 weather. But before we get there, we'll take a gander once in a while at what's going on in the tropics, and we'll use the GFS today as an example. This is the 12Z run. This is the analysis from in the morning. Yeah, you can see down here in the deep tropics, not much energy down there. Straight, east to west trade winds. The energy is up here in the mid-latitudes now with these storm systems. So we focus away from the tropics, generally, and more towards these mid-latitude storms. And as I put this into motion over the next 2 weeks, just kind of giving you an idea, see how that rings true. Look at all of these storms, up through here, and a lack of any organized development down here. That's going to be a big clue for you. And, I'm just showing you the next 16 days because it's very prevalent. All that mid-latitude activity up at the top of the map, the north part, in the mid-latitudes, high latitudes. Yeah, the GFS trying to do what it does and develop some type of a storm that breaks off from the mid-latitudes and whatever. That's so far out in time that even in the eastern Atlantic, we don't worry about it too much. But just going back and showing you less and less energy all down here, more energy going to be bundling and doing its thing with these mid-latitude cyclones as we go forward. And I will be covering more of that. My goal going forward is to do more awareness of weather as a whole. Remember, I'm a physical geographer. That is what my degree is in. And I focused on hurricanes. That's my specialty. But in that, I learned about meteorology. I learned about statistics, map making, some economics, and other things thrown in my degree program. But I'm more of a physical geographer, and I focused on weather. And hurricanes would be my specialty, kind of like being a heart surgeon. You go through medical school, you get a bunch of other training, and then you specialize in the human heart. I specialize in hurricanes. But other weather around the globe here, especially North America, is of interest. So as we shift away from, I don't want to say worrying, I don't want to ever have you worry, but we shift away from looking at the tropics down here on a daily basis, again, more towards what comes into the lower 48 affecting North America, maybe these East Coast and Northeast blizzards, maybe some lake effect snow events. I'd love to be able to get out and see those in person, put some of our equipment to use, some storms out here in the Great Plains during the winter and the spring, and then maybe next year in the desert Southwest, the monsoon season, which was not very active, and we did not get a big event of any hurricanes coming up into the desert Southwest this year of any consequence. Last year, we had Rosa. I was out there for that. I think of others in the past, Norbert and Odile in 2014 come to mind. Not a very active monsoon season. So, yeah, I'll have my eye on storms. Maybe they get their development here in the Gulf. Let's get a different shade of blue. Sky blue shows up better. They form over here, and then sometimes they can ride up the coast and head out to sea. Maybe they come up and they're a little closer. Sometimes they form and they go out this way. Those ones that bring in those blizzard conditions, I'm very interested in those, and I'm going to be able to study those this year more than ever before. I've been out in winter storms all the way back to 2014 on a professional basis, if you will, expanding the HurricaneTrack, repertoire. But I'm really going to do more of that now, and it's because of this right here, Patreon. You guys supporting me here, and there's anywhere, the average is around 300. It dips down in the off season, goes back up when things are busy. but the bottom line is it has been growing. And this allows me to do more than ever before in the field, original content, and, doing updates with more graphics and reaching people in a different way than I could before. It's incredible. And that's all through this Patreon. I'll talk more about this in a minute because I got some intriguing, cheese to hang in front of you, a carrot to dangle in front of you, if you will. One of those is this. As we get into the off season, I am excited about this big time. My first official podcast, and it will be exclusively available on Patreon. Okay? Right there, exclusively on Patreon. There's a reason that it says that. That'll be coming up December the 4th. That's a Wednesday. The first episode of Stories from the Hurricane Highway will drop, as they say. And it'll be an audio podcast. And it's going to start at the very beginning of my career. Why did I get into this? What were my early influences? And I'm just going to tell you stories. Just kind of like we were all sitting down around the campfire, sitting around the hearth, what do you call those things? The fire pit. Sitting on the sofa in the living room, whatever. Hanging out, just talking. And we do that at some of these conferences, by the way, a lot of us. And me and Morgerman, whoever. Over the years, Jesse Bass, Mike Tice, I can just think of all the guys, the late Jim Leonard. We would all just talk and talk and talk amongst ourselves. Now I want to be able to talk to you and tell you these stories. So think of it too. It's almost like an audio book. I haven't written a book yet. I'd love to write a book someday. So let's start with a podcast, shall we? It's easier. You can just listen. So this will be available on Patreon exclusively. I'm not going to put it on Apple. I'm not going to put it on Google. You got to be on Patreon. And it's only the $1 level or higher. It's not $10 or $5. I mean, everybody's going to have access to it on Patreon, but it'll start right here. So, it's a way to say, look, dip your toe into the world of Patreon. We're in the era of crowdfunding. You support what you believe in and what's important to you. More and more people, as they grow up, especially the younger crowd, they're going to know about this and they're going to support what matters to them. And these podcasts, they're very popular. And I look forward to doing that. So the first episode will be December 4th, and then they will be weekly, all the way until May. And then that's it. It'll be a season, like when you watch The Walking Dead or, whatever. Game of Thrones, they have seasons. Same thing. This will be season 1 of the podcast series, Stories from the Hurricane Highway. Then in January, I'm going to have an original television type series, a television style mini-series. Instead of a 2-hour-long documentary, it'll be a series, a video series that's going to be called The Hurricane Highway, taking a different look at this. We've called them Tracking the Hurricanes for 15 years, changing things up. Going to make episodes, 45 minutes to an hour long, also exclusively available 2 places. First on Patreon, then 2 weeks later, Amazon Prime Video. We will talk about that more in December. That's coming, a television type series, but first this podcast. So if you're not already on Patreon, now's a good time. Jump on there, patreon.com/HurricaneTrack. If that's not enough, check this out. Starting next year, in January, for all of our current patrons and future patrons, no matter what level, I'm going to be incorporating weathermodels.com graphics into my updates exclusively for Patreon. I'm not going to tweet them. I'm not going to put them in my public blogs necessarily. They'll go on Patreon first, and then I make them public later, most of them. I'm trying to help the public as a whole, but I got to fund what I do. I hope you understand that. But because of the current funding and the support from folks that we have, I'm able to do so. And so starting next year, these 285 people, and hopefully it'll start growing again. I mean, heck, we started out with like 3 or 4, and my YouTube channel was like 1,500 subscribers in 2017. 2 years later, I'm at over 21,000. That's all you guys. all of you guys. That's you. That's real. That's organic growth. And this is not money in my pocket. This is funding for ongoing operations. Does that make sense? It helps me do what I do. It's my salary. And with that, I'm going to give you guys this. I will incorporate these graphics now that they have relaxed some of their rules. The ECMWF in particular, you may have read about that. I will be able to do more with this in helping with my analysis. So that's going to be a major benefit to our current and future Patreon and HurricaneTrack Insider family. That's what it is. It's like a cooperative. It's great. So that's coming up for January 2020. I cannot wait. I'm looking forward to it. Now, this next thing I told you I had some announcements today. This is a t-shirt. And I know you're like, well, duh. But this is a very special t-shirt. Think of when you go to a concert, whether it's old school like me, U2, Van Halen, Whitesnake, whatever, right? I took my daughter a few years ago to see One Direction. There's a friend of mine from when I grew up. I saw he went to Slayer last night. Man, you get it. You go see a comedian. You go see Gaffigan. You go see whoever. I don't know. Whatever you're into these days. These music festivals where there's 3 days of mayhem, and that's what it is. You get a t-shirt. And, we have t-shirts. And you've seen me wear mine from time to time. It's got my logo on it. And you're like, all right, a few people have asked, hey, where can I get one of those? Well, this is a very special one. And I'm teasing it because I'm building it up here. It's special because it's my tour t-shirt. Finally, I've been wanting to do this, and it's ready. It's the Hurricane Highway U.S. Tour celebrating, that's a long time, 1996 through 2019. Every single event that I have been on, no matter how intense or how meager, whatever, the weakest to the strongest, if it was a named storm and I was out there for it, either with myself, Jesse, Eddie back in the day, worked with John Van Pelt. You might know him from Storm Study, and I think he's still with Weather Nation, and others. Carrie, any of the people that I have worked with, the Brent era, the era of Brent, Todd has helped out. All the people that I have met along the way, many of you. These are those events, starting with Bertha in 1996, all the way down through Nestor just a few weeks ago now in 2019. So this is our official sort of rock concert tour, whatever. Hurricane Highway U.S. Tour. This will be available through a link that I'll put out by the end of the week in the description of future videos. I'll put it on Twitter and elsewhere. Through customink.com, they have a whole fundraiser thing you can do, and I will sell these. But for our patrons at some of the levels, I'm going to go back and look through. Some of you that have been with us for a while, I will give one to you for free. And I'll go back and look through all the different levels and make sure everybody, we got you covered. And then for those that want to get one, but they may not be quite at that level yet, I'll send you a special link where you can get it at a discount, basically at cost. And then for the general public, because I know people have asked for these, yes, I will have these available for sale, and we'll use it as a little bit of a fundraiser. I'm not going to make $10,000 from selling t-shirts. I don't have that many people that want one, first of all, and you got to be real about these things, but I think this is really cool. This is mine. This is shirt number 1. It's a large. Yay, I can actually fit into a large. And so that's number 1, and we'll hopefully sell a few dozen to our big fans. And, this is it. This will keep growing. I'll do another one next year if we have any field missions. And this will just keep, every year. You think about a different band that goes on tour. The last band, if you will, that I saw was Hans Zimmer. And, the guy that does the music stuff, the scores. And that was in Houston. And they had Hans Zimmer t-shirts. And so this is the Mark Sudduth Hurricane Highway, the U.S. tour. Yes, I've been to Bermuda. And yes, I've been to Hawaii. But we're talking about road trip, right? And these are all the different ones that I've been in. And we'll continue to grow this. So that'll be available. I'll put a link out by the end of the week in a future video. If you're on Patreon already, I'll send you an email and get your address and stuff, and we'll start working on this so that they're all delivered in plenty of time. They make a great gift coming up Christmas, right? So there you go. And I'll talk about it more, but you heard about it here first. I was excited about it, and there you go. So lots of interesting things coming up. The off season, Patreon is going to be where we start from. That'll be the base of which we grow this very unique thing based around crowdfunding for the money part, because unfortunately it still takes money to do stuff. But as we continue to grow this little mini world that we've got of people who are interested in the weather, whether it be lower 48, North America type stuff, right? It's very dynamic in our country and in this continent, but also the tropics. I will talk about as we get into December and beyond, what to look for next year. Stupid arrow keeps coming up. There we go. And the INSO, what's that going to do? How about Atlantic sea surface temperatures? Things that we can track in the off season. I absolutely will continue to talk about that. And hey, with some of these tools that I'll be able to use, it'll probably be even better. I can't wait. So a lot of exciting things as we wrap up hurricane season. You get to breathe a sigh of relief. We in the United States are lucky. We made it. Most of us. Yes, there's Imelda. Yes, there's Dorian. I get that. But by and large, we did better than we did last year. Okay, so there's an improvement. We have people still suffering in the Bahamas. Of course they are. And, it's hurricane season's tough on some people. I like to look at it as understanding, being aware, being prepared, and not fearing it. Don't think of it as something to be fearful of. Learn from what I'm doing. Learn from what we all share together in this incredible connected world that we call social media. And I'm going to continue that. It's been a heck of a year, and it's not over. That's the good part. We're going to keep going, and we do some amazing stuff in the off season, and I cannot wait for you to be a part of it. I'll talk in more detail about specific projects that I'm going to be having. Just real quick before I sign off, what do I intend to do if I go up to the Northeast for a big blizzard? What do I intend to do out in the Great Plains for a big winter storm or lake effect snows? Or out here for maybe tornado season? I have an idea. I'm going to share it with you later. It's going to be awesome. I figured something out that we can do that nobody else has done yet that could contribute to the science and be an incredible adventure at the same time. And I don't have to chase anything. Forget that. Too many people out there. Harmful. Dangerous. I want to do something different, immerse you in it, and that's what I've been doing now with the help of so many great people for the better part of 15 years on the internet age of things, 23 years, everything else. Incredible. So, hey, I think I'm done. Hopefully this recording worked. Been having trouble, like I said. I'm going to just have to start over and buy a new computer, I think. We'll see. I don't know. Maybe it won't come to that. All right, I'm done. Thanks as always for tuning in. I'm jazzed up about things as we end hurricane season and go forward from there. I can't wait to have you along for the ride on the Hurricane Highway, right? There you go. Have a great rest of your Monday. Thanks as always for tuning in. I am Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack.com. I'll talk to you more tomorrow.